Behave. I swear to the gods. I heard you swear at the gods all the time. We made that video just to blow off some good-natured steam, and Loki was like, "You're not making a video until you can do this. Be funny." And I'm like missing your voice. I'm sorry, but oh dear, we saw another one of those every so often. If you're Lokean, you get used to this. If you have any idea of a sense of humor or fun at all, or you have a little chibi Loki in the background, every so often them's peoples that put titles on themselves grab the torches and pitchforks and come for you because UI and everyone else that likes Marvel Loki are the reason there are problems. And this wasn't even about Loki for once. It was about Thor, actually. I get a sense he's back here like, I got so many problems. And the comics and all other representations of our gods are bad and evil, and they must be somehow cleansed from among the people who give themselves certain titles. Okay, good luck with that. Every time I do a video, I can look over there and see my Hiddle clocks. My response to that. Loki teaches us to laugh at ourselves, and he's a teacher. First and foremost, he's a teacher. Somebody asked me, what is he actually on about, being a trickster or not? He's a teacher, and he'll teach you by tricking you. And I'd had a dream this morning. I didn't know what it was about, and I think Loki knows awfully damn well what I'm like and what I'm going to go do. He can predict me very well. So I think he knew I saw that. And in the dream, I had a brother. My brother had me in this kind of drugstore, and I was going through this big box of, like, toys. And I was reaching in, and there were, like, 4 or 5 race cars in, like, a black kind of blister pack, you know what they call. And I wanted to get 2 because he would have a set and I would have a set and we would play together. Now, at first I thought this was Sprayer, but I knew I had that brother in the dream and I had another brother. Which technically I do because I refer to Fleur as my brother. I just thought of that. But I wasn't sure if it was Freyr, it was Loki, or God knows, it could have been any of them. But the idea was have fun and play with me. Whatever way you think is possible. If you want to put on unicorn costume or dress up like a rainbow or go cosplay, go to it. As long as you know who Loki is. And as long as you feel he approves, don't listen to anyone else. Now, I get it. Some people get way too obnoxious. They get into something and all of a sudden it's their waifu and they have to show everyone waifu and the rest of us get sick and tired of it. I get it. I really do. But, that's no reason to label the vast majority of people that, for example, came in through the comic books as stupid and ignorant, because we all know I came in through the comic books because Thor reached out to my brother. Now, let me put that charming story in context for those of you that are new to the channel. Decades ago, the only thing they had in this area that would have even showed you that the Norse gods actually existed were the Thor comic books. My brother was 11 years older, so he got to read them. And long story short, because my parents were so rabidly Catholic and would beat the living tar out of us if we so much as mentioned another god in the house. Not so much my mom, but my dad did enough beating for 2 parents. My brother had to go the whole way to Pittsburgh to go look up these Norse gods and try to read their stories, and his friends with criminal histories, this is going somewhere, had to get him books. Now, they didn't steal the books, but they had to get them to him like a thief, because had my dad found the books, he would have beat him. And so we had the long, hard, painful way to get to the gods. And before my father drove my brother out, you can read about this over on Patreon, he told me he knew Thor was watching over us and he thought Loki too, but he didn't understand quite how yet, because, comic book Loki has been everything from rightfully pissed off that he was imprisoned and forgotten and unloved to a hero who would die for his people. So, at the time, I don't think his character arc was doing him too much good. So, he was puzzled why Loki would also love us. And if anything, that is the only problem of an unfair portrayal, but we see unfair portrayals written by people that are supposed to work with our gods all the time. Either Odin's a nasty, evil villain, and all Lokeans are supposed to hate him, Or Loki's the evil, nasty villain, and anybody that loves Balder is supposed to hate him, and so forth and so on. There are groups that hate Odin, Thor, Loki, any a god for any reason. There are people out there that hate them and will not work with them and will spit if you mention them. I think they're stupid, but that's up to them. And if Loki would have us remember anything, he'd remember to have us laugh and to serve him in a way, or to serve any of the other gods in a way that makes them happy. When we were building the, as I kept taking you guys on the tour and we were building the temples and that, Odin didn't give two shits I used American gods Odin. In fact, he found it was pretty funny, but he says, "Do you really think I look like Columbo?" And I'm like, no, but that's the best we could do, because let's admit it, the Odin in the Thor movies is like the damn worst Odin representation ever. His lazy ass sleeps all the time, and he's all peace, love, and hug-a-bunny. Now, Odin does have a very peaceful past, but the real Odin, as many people have said, will probably kick his ass for him. Because for one, he's a space alien. He's not an actual god. If you follow the movies the whole way through, they're aliens that just live for centuries and somehow people worship them or something. It's a fucking comic book. It's supposed to be our religion. So it was one of those things I had to respond to, because it smacks of the tyranny a lot of us came from. A lot of us came from the church, and I actually almost put Freyr into tears because I did read a little more of that book, and it was hard to read. Because no insult to any Christians that watch, but it's one of those books where their God only gives them things if they're willing to be absolute puppets. I'm saying this from this book, I'm not saying my opinion. And to bow down and wear chains and do exactly as they're told. They're not supposed to be autonomous, they're not supposed to be free, and they're not supposed to think, and they're not supposed to do whatever they want. They're supposed to do exactly what God says so, or else. And they're being punished and damned for all time because two people put in a garden made a very bad series of decisions. And I'm like, really? Okay, I respect that this is your religion, but really, common sense would tell any all-knowing deity that already knew what was going to happen, that if you put two little babies, because basically they were babies, and this was the part that almost had Freyr in tears, they were basically babies. You took two little babies of a species, put them in a garden and said, don't touch that. And you know babies and you know children. Why? Because I said no. Why? Because I said no, damn it. Why? And the moment your back's turned, what do? They go and they touch it. One of the scariest things about having young children is teaching them that sometimes they actually do have to listen, like don't drink the poison, don't eat antifreeze even though it tastes good, or don't stab your sister with the scissors while you're making crafts, or any other crazy stuff you gotta teach them. But for something like that, if you've ever actually worked with children, you know there's at least a 90% chance the child's not going to listen, and when they do, you're going to be like, they listen. Are you sick? And that's what you're gonna be like. So the gods were actually really upset, and as I was walking off, they were all talking to me, and do you see how they put chains on their people, and do you see how they make you, enslaved to this god because you become a puppet, and you must do this god's will, and the only way this god's going to free you, or be kind to you, or give you blessings, is because you're a total puppet, and you serve this god and this god alone, which is the fine talking point Odin got onto. And then Odin roars one of his typical Odin challenges that if this god is right here, right now, this god can fight him and give me a total healing. And where is this god? Where is he? And I'm like getting this image of Odin shaking his spear and roaring for someone to come fight him, and I'm like, this is why we can have no other gods in this house. But he was making his point in a very Odinish way. There, we'll go with that. And it made us sad to see that some people will throw off any of that kind of tyranny and then willingly put themselves into other chains and say you can't have fun and you can't have mirth and you can't read comic books or you can't watch movies or what? Next, you can't go to the opera, or I might not care for some of it. Some of it may not be historically accurate, but it doesn't mean I can forbid you to read it. I can only say, hey, I got that book, and I was reading it, and Loki liked it just fine, but Segan's the one that got upset, or Thor didn't like it, or, usually Loki's the last one to have a bad reaction. He's kind of, he really doesn't give a shit what people think of him. It's the other gods that have more of a reaction. So we just thought we'd put our 2 cents in there, put our poll in there, because I think the comics do a lot of good, and I think that, especially with the comics and the charity and everything, before at least Marvel was bought out by Disney. Now Loki's a Disney prince. I hear laughter back here. So is Thor, actually. They're Disney princes. Huh. Musicals coming up next. They did a lot of good charity work. They did a lot of things, and I think it would be exactly like our gods to use a comic book writer from outside the faith, or to use a writer from outside the faith, or normies as I lovingly call them. I swear it's loving. To do the work we should be doing, because, a lot of times they seem to know our gods better than we do. In a sense. I don't agree with every portrayal ever written, but in a sense, they get the point. They get the point that we should treat other people well. So, if you like what you see, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.